What's up, Buncombe? It's Abby, and today I am here with who has become a good friend of mine, Mr. Don Brown, who's running for United States Senate. How are you today?
Great, Abby. Thanks for having me. Love your studios, by the way.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to have you here.
Raise a flag of liberty, the land of the free, rejecting tyranny.
So we're here today to talk about Michael Whatley. Our team has reached out to him half a dozen times at least, and then we've even reached out through the NCGOP, and we've gotten no response. We've tried to get him on the show. We've tried to have a debate, and I know several other counties have tried to host debates too, and he has not responded. So that door is still open. Anytime that he would like to come on our show, we'd love to have him.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, to be specific, the Onslow County Republican Party was going to host a debate October 2nd. Andy Nelson, my good friend who I've gotten to be good friends with, was still in the race. He since has left the race. I was in the race. Andy and I would have come and debated. Michael got invited, and his team kind of like said no. So I'm saying, hey, Michael, come out from behind a rock. Let's see what you got, my man. I'll debate you any day of the week and twice on Sunday because I love the debate. And North Carolina Republicans deserve to know whether or not our senatorial nominee can think on his feet and has any mastery of policy chops. So what you got to be afraid of, Michael? Come on out. Let's see what you can do. Your constituents, if you had any, you don't have any yet, want to see what you can do. And I'm here and ready for you anytime.
Love it.
He won't come out of the rock, though, but just rib you a little bit, Michael. But we'd love to see what you got.
So what we've got today is we've got some videos, some articles and things of things that Michael Whatley has done or said, and we'd love to get your opinion on them as kind of see what we can. All right, so starting on July 28th, when Whatley was announcing his senatorial campaign, he said that he was going to focus on North Carolina values.
Our campaign will be about North Carolina values. We will fight for a strong economy, safe communities, and America that is respected around the world.
I'd love to know, what does North Carolina values mean to you?
North Carolina values start with God first, family, and country. I heard someone once say, love your country and distrust the government. North Carolina values start with love. We put God first and our family and our country, and the government serves a purpose, but all that comes first. And as I've said to you off air and offline, if you want to know what North Carolina values look like, look at the way our people rallied together after Hurricane Helene in the 25 mountain counties that were devastated. When the Democrat governor, the Democrat federal administration, when the worthless FEMA were all inept, and even after President Trump appointed Michael as a hurricane czar, we are still here with people hurting. But our folks pull together, whether it's Franklin Graham Samaritan Purse right here in Boone, Adam Smith did a great job, who's now running for the Congress, of pulling folks together. It's neighbors helping neighbors. It's family members helping family members. It's a love for one another that can't be broken by some sort of outside pie-in-the-sky political philosophy. It's based on love and faith, and it starts with faith and love. That's what North Carolina values are about to me. It's what I've known all my life, and will continue to know until I go to see Jesus, I suppose.
I love that.
You bet.
Back in March of this year, back on March 21st to be specific, at the Carolina Country Club, Whatley gave an official endorsement of Senator Tom Tillis, and to my understanding, that goes against Rule 11 with him serving as RNC chair at the time.
Rule 11, you mentioned this, Abby, is this rule that's gotten a lot of play within the North Carolina Republican Party. It is the national RNC rule, which actually prohibits the national party from endorsing or breaking neutrality or giving aid to any primary candidate before a primary election, with one exception. The only exception that can happen is if the candidate is unopposed. And I would encourage everybody to go look up Rule 11. You can Google it, RNC Rule 11. It's about a paragraph. You'll see the word unopposed. Michael Whatley has never been unopposed. Tom Tillis was not unopposed at the time Whatley, as RNC chairman, endorsed him. So Michael Whatley violated Rule 11 as RNC chair on that occasion. Not only must the candidate be unopposed, but that can only come if the filing deadline has passed, but the primary date is not yet here. So the filing deadline for this Senate race is in December. The primary date is March 3rd, as I recall. So if after December there was only one Republican candidate that is unopposed, but before the March primary, then Rule 11 exception could kick in so that the party chair or the party could then endorse. But what you're having is Whatley breaking the rule then on that date, and the national party and the state party now breaking the rule because they've essentially endorsed Whatley, even though he is not unopposed, he is opposed. And that's kind of like, unfortunately, you got some members of the media and members of the national and state Republican Party that want to ram one candidate down the voters' throats, kind of like the Democrats did, with Kamala Harris, who never got a single vote. After Joe Biden stepped out, they rammed her down the Democrats' throats, and you saw what you got. North Carolina Republicans are smarter than that, and our folks who are conservative, more conservative than the candidate they're trying to ram down our throats, want to see a debate. We want to see a primary. We want to hear issues discussed. We want to talk about the national debt and medical freedom and these out-of-control judges, and how are we going to expedite relief for hurricane victims, and how are we going to protect our shrimpers in eastern North Carolina. And I've been very active in that battle as well. They want specific solutions, not just a bunch of hogwash. Here I am. I'm the chair. You got to accept me. No, we want to know how it's going to help the United States of America and, most importantly, the great state of North Carolina. So we're looking forward to see if Michael ever comes out from behind his rock and actually discusses some substantive issues against an opponent that can debate him. I doubt we're going to see that, but we're going to take him down anyway. So we'll see how it goes.
To my knowledge, his website has no policies on it, but yours does.
Yeah.
So can we talk about some of those policies for a second?
We can talk about anything you want to talk about. Those policies, or we get a little fried chicken, or whatever you want to do. We're going to have a good time today, Abby, so whatever you want to do.
On your website, you have a very strong opposition to the vaccine mandates that were being pushed on us. Back in March of 2021, Michael Whatley did an interview stating that when the first time that he was eligible for that shot, he was going to take it. And he was encouraging people to do it also. We have a video that I'll play in just a second.
The head of North Carolina's Republican Party says they've been talking about ways of how to be proactive, encouraging everyone to get a COVID-19 vaccine as soon as they can. When his turn comes, Michael Whatley will roll up his sleeve.
Look, I'm going to get the shot as soon as I'm eligible. I encourage everybody else to get the shot as soon as they're eligible. If anybody has any concerns about the safety or efficacy of the shots, then they should talk to their doctors about it. But this is certainly a personal choice and one between, any individual and their doctors.
The NCGOP chairman says the science around COVID-19 vaccines should speak for itself.
In terms of the efficacy and the safety of the vaccines, that's absolutely not political. That's going to be based on science.
Whatley says politics aside, the party's been talking about ways to be proactive to encourage everyone to get the shot.
A key component of making sure that we're going to be able to move forward safely is having everybody get vaccinated.
And he was saying, it's not political, it's scientific. What do you think about that?
Well, it's a bunch of malarkey. And it was very much political. And Mike did that interview from the North Carolina Republican Party headquarters. He wrapped his chairmanship of the state Republican Party around pushing a dangerous experimental jab at the time. And when he said it's all about science, he had no clue what he's talking about. Listen, the inventor of the mRNA technology, Dr. Robert Malone, argued against putting mRNA in vaccines all along. And the whole COVID scam, and I call it a scam because it was built on so many lies, was really to push us to see how far they could control us. If you think about it, and I'll come back to Mike in a second. I bet you want me to get off of you, don't you, Mike? He wants me to get off of it. But look at Fauci, for example, and the Surgeon General. On Monday, they're saying, you don't have to wear a mask. The mask is worthless. On Tuesday, they're saying, wear a mask. So what's it going to be? Well, I was doing the research. So Michael was very irresponsible in pushing that jab. He had no clue as what he was talking about. People have been injured. People have died. I was involved in major federal litigation involving the jab. Took a major case with 78 plaintiffs, including many nuclear engineers, at the Savannah River nuclear plant in South Carolina to federal court, first in Columbia and then to the Fourth Circuit. We were suing Savannah River. Biden said he was going to cut off all the money if the employees did not take the jab. So we sued them on the theory that South Carolina was that Savannah River, the employer, was practicing medicine without a license. And that was a correct theory. We went to the Court of Appeals, finally saved those jobs. But here's what I'll share with you, and I've shared over and over again. We'll see if it gets shadow banned. But the truth of the matter is we pulled the government's own numbers. It has a reporting system called VAERS. That's VAERS. And the government has bragged on this for years. It's a system to let us know when something goes wrong with a vaccine. And in years past, if you had one vaccine like DTAP, that would, a couple of bad reactions, the FDA would shut the whole vaccine down nationally just to make sure there wasn't a widespread bad vat. That's what happened, except for when COVID came along. When COVID came along, they turned their nose on theirs, but the numbers that we pulled are shocking. You only get that here from January of 2021 to October of 2021. We have more deaths reported. And this is an underreported site, from the 3 COVID jabs that Michael was pushing. More deaths reported from those 3 experimental jabs than from every other vaccine combined over a 30-year period. And that's the God's honest truth. And the dirty Democrat government kept that from you, and the same sleazy media that's trying to make us think there are only 2 candidates in this case, Cooper and Whatley kept that from you. And Michael very irresponsibly pushed that. And, people have been hurt by that jab. People have dropped over dead. Even now, the FDA is now starting to warn against heart problems and myocarditis after they said, and Michael said when you play his thing, it's perfectly safe. It was never safe. And it was irresponsible to use his position as chair of the North Carolina Republican Party to push that junk. On that issue, we could not be more diametrically separated and opposite on that. And I'm going to push for medical freedom. I don't think you or me or anyone else ought to be forced to, I don't care if the jab is perfectly safe. Let's say it was safe, like he said, but it never was. Let's say it was a matter of science, like he said, but it never was. Even if it were the best thing since sliced bread, you shouldn't be forced to take it or lose your job. And no government should force you to do that, and no private employer should force you to do that. So I'm going to push for a federal vaccine protection act so that could never happen again. And it's not just a jab. You shouldn't have to take anything in your body, whether it's the jab or a microchip or whatever. We got to get out ahead of this now, and we've got to knock it back before they try it again.
So back in January of 2021, we know there was the J6,
Right.
And there was a lot of controversy that surrounded that from the other side, blaming us for things that we did not do. And then we have a video of Michael Whatley, which I'll play in a second, talking about the actions of those who were at J6. And we know you've been very instrumental in that and securing 2 presidential pardons for those that were there.
Mr. Chairman, I want to read you a statement. All right, this statement says, President Trump is most certainly not the victim here. His words and actions were reckless, and he shares responsibility for the disgrace that occurred on January 6th. Is that a statement you agree with?
Look, I think that the rhetoric and actions that we saw on January 6th, the actions that we saw from the protesters that attacked the Capitol are horrific and unjustified. There is no rationale that could excuse the actions of those people that went into the Capitol, that caused the violence, and the deaths and injuries that we've seen from that are truly horrific. But I think the fault lies with those people who attacked the Capitol.
Okay, because that statement blames the former president. It says that President Trump shares responsibility for the disgrace that occurred on January 6th. That statement made by your other Republican senator, Tom Tillis. Tom Tillis, Republican senator from North Carolina, says that the former president's actions were reckless and he shares responsibility. What responsibility do you, as the Republican Party chair in North Carolina, think the former president bears for what happened on January 6th?
I think the responsibility lies with those people who broke the law, who attacked the Capitol, who attacked those police officers and caused the violence and mayhem, which is completely reprehensible and unjustifiable.
So you think Mitch McConnell is wrong? Because Mitch McConnell says there's no question, none, that the president is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of that day. Why is Mitch McConnell wrong?
Look, I'm not going to say that Mitch McConnell's wrong. What I'm going to say is that, the actions that we saw by that mob are completely unjustifiable, reprehensible, and horrific.
And has the North Carolina Republican Party made any statement condemning or putting responsibility on the former president for anything that happened on January 6th?
What we did is put out multiple statements saying that we were horrified by the actions on January 6th and that they were unjustified and unreasonable.
What's your take on the things that Michael Whatley said?
Well, I've seen the tape. Michael brags that he was the first state chair to attack and call out our J6 patriots. Called them mob, called them this, called them that. Let me tell you something. The majority of those patriots there were peaceful. They had every right to question an election that needed to be questioned. There's a little thing in the First Amendment called the right of free speech, and also the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. I felt like it was a governmental fedsurrection from the beginning. And now we're seeing evidence that over 250 agents were planted in that crowd trying to excite the mob so they could use it as a ruse to attack Trump supporters. Michael and I could not be on more different sides. I represented a young man from probably the youngest J6 patriot named Elliot Bechet from Fort Mill, South Carolina. All he and his friend Elias Irizarry did was walk into the Capitol and walk out. And on the morning that his dad called me in the March of 2021, about the time Michael was attacking our J6 patriots, he said, Don, I've got 12 FBI counterterrorism agents raiding my house. Went down to Columbia, South Carolina. The kid had been charged just with a misdemeanor. 12 FBI counterterrorism agents charged with a misdemeanor. Michael should have been standing. What he should have been done is questioning the stolen elections. What he should have been done. Mm-hmm. He should have asked, why is it that we have 6 states shutting down all at once at 10 p.m. and going and then bringing in the tooth fairy, or the ballot fairy, as I call it. He should have been questioning what happened at the TGY Center in Michigan, when all of a sudden in the middle of the night you see vans showing up with ballots that are unaccounted for. He should have talked to me. I took affidavits because I was on 3 separate legal teams, including Sidney Powell's, who's endorsed our campaign. I was taking affidavits from Republican poll workers at the center in Detroit who went under oath saying that night they brought in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ballots. After they shut Michigan down, Trump was winning in a landslide at 10 p.m. And we were seeing single-shot ballots. In other words, you have 20, 30 people on a ballot. Only Biden was being voted for. See, they were marking the ballots, running them through without question. Michael should have been raising those questions rather than attacking American patriots who had every right to question and challenge what was going on in front of him. And the notion that he has fed into that anybody was hurt or killed there other than Ashley Babbitt is ridiculous. This is another issue we couldn't be on more opposite sides of. These folks, most of them had every right. They were patriots and most were peaceful. The vast majority of the prosecutions even are misdemeanor prosecutions for what they call under the federal code entering and remaining in a restricted area. That's the official charge. It just means trespass. Mm-hmm. And the day that I was in court with Elliot Olson in front of Judge Tanya Chutkan, the same judge that Jack Smith tried to haul President Trump in front of. And I remember arguing for Elliot. I said, Your Honor, I said, you and I both know this is basically a trespass charge. If this were any other trespass charge in the country, there would be no jail time for anybody. It would have been dismissed by now. And she agreed with that. This is a political assault against the Constitution. And rather than attacking our J6 patriots, Michael should have been attacking the assault against the Constitution from these political prosecutions, from the prosecution of these J6ers. By the way, I wrote a book called Kangaroo Court. I'll get you a copy if I haven't already. But there is a chapter in there, I think it's chapter 35, in which we analyze the J6 prosecutions versus the George Floyd prosecutions. George Floyd killed himself. He overdosed with fentanyl, and the left took a video out of context to make it appear that the officer had killed Floyd. George Floyd was dying from 3 times the lethal dose of fentanyl before, he even was on the ground, okay? They took that as an excuse to tear the country apart. It was the most damaging riot in American history. 20-some deaths, we don't know the entire count. But, 95% of those prosecutions, Abby, that were misdemeanor were dismissed, okay? About 98% of the J6 prosecutions were prosecuted, and most of those were misdemeanors. This is a violation of the equal protection of law. The J6ers, our J6 patriots, are being prosecuted because they're Trump supporters. Mm-hmm. That's what Michael Whatley should have been going after rather than attacking American patriots, and he should still be going after that. I challenge you, Michael, to go after it hard, brother. If you've got the guts to do it, I will go after it hard, because we can never be in a situation again where we have a dual standard system of justice like the Democrats try to ram down our throats under Biden and Obama. Now, let me tell you this, Michael. If you're willing to stand up for our J6 patriots and to go after the crooked Justice Department for its mass prosecution of J6ers, while Democrat prosecutors had mass dismissal of George Floyd protesters. I will join with you on that. We can work together on some things if you got the guts to do it. I call you out, brother. Let's do it.
Speaking of the George Floyd protest, I've been learning all kinds of things about this lately. There has actually been some documentation showing that Michael Whatley was involved with the young Republicans that were marching on the streets for George Floyd.
A couple of folks in the North Carolina Federation of Young Republicans at the time lost their mind a little bit and believed the propaganda they were seeing on TV. I'm going to come back to that in a second. I wrote an op-ed, and anybody watching this, go to type in American Thinker, Don Brown, American Thinker, and the title of the op-ed is Who Killed George Floyd? And it lays out, based upon solid evidence, including the Hennepin County coroner's report at the time, and video evidence going back an hour to George Floyd OD'd on fentanyl. But a bunch of fools believed what they were seeing on TV. So the North Carolina Federation of Young Republicans at the time, a couple of folks, we love the North Carolina Federation of Young Republicans, let me be clear, but a couple of leaders at the time kind of like went a little woke on us and wanted to join in solidarity with BLM and protest against police brutality, okay? So they went to Raleigh and they got a parade permit laying out the purpose for their march to join in solidarity with BLM, which is a communist organization, it was founded by communists, and to protest against police brutality. This was the beginning of the defund the police movement. It was going to start on Jones Street, I believe, but it would end up at the North Carolina Republican Party headquarters, which is a private property. And Whatley let them come on board North Carolina Republican Party headquarters to protest police brutality. And we have, a copy of the parade permit. Mm-hmm. You can post it online. We've seen it.
Yeah, we'll show it.
Now, it may be a mistake. Maybe Whatley believed the junk too. I don't know. He must have believed some of it. But we got to have better discernment from conservative and Republican leaders. You can't just fall in. You got to understand that if the mass media is pushing something, you better disbelieve it first, and ask a lot of questions before you jump into something like that.
Yeah. So about the Trump endorsement. So we know back with J6 that Michael Whatley went to the side of Mitch McConnell and the Democrats, who were all saying that Trump's behavior on that day was somehow wrong and reprehensible and all these things, when all he did was ask for a recount, which is well within his power. So why would Trump give him an endorsement?
Well, the endorsement is kind of like a half-hearted endorsement, and I love the president, and my guess is that the president doesn't know some of the things that we're talking about right now. But let's go back to the question that you raised and dissected a bit. Remember, Trump was already out of office, and the Democrats and CNN and everybody else are turning on Trump, turning on J6ers. The morning that I got a call to go to Columbia, South Carolina to represent my client was March. It was 2 months after President Trump left office. About that time, Whatley was interviewed by CNN. And of course, CNN was turning on J6 Patriots and calling them mob and this and that and the other, just like it was planned in the federal election. And the interviewer, and you can show this, he turns to Whatley and says, Mr. Whatley, Senator, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'm going to be close. I'm going to go on Mark. He said, Senator, he said, Mr. Whatley, Senator McConnell has blamed the entire J6 insurrection on President Trump. Then he says, are you going to disagree with Senator McConnell? He asked that question. He sets it up, blaming on the Trump. Number one, CNN does that. Then number two, CNN asked Whatley, are you going to disagree with Mitch McConnell? Whatley's response, I'm not going to disagree with Senator McConnell. That's exactly what he said. We got it on video. Then he goes on to attack the J6ers, reprehensible, inexcusable, whatever the words he used, rather than pointing out we got to get to the bottom of what happened in this election. Supreme Court washed its hands of it, but the Congress had every right to investigate that, and he should have continued to press that. If he is really the election integrity king as he claims he is, which I don't know how you're election integrity king when you get elected as GOP chair on a cell phone which is very, very, very unreliable. But he should have not fallen for going along and getting along with what CNN was trying to push and what Mitch McConnell was trying to push, and which has now been proven to be inexcusably wrong. We need stronger leadership in that.
So not only do we have a problem in the 2020 presidential election, but if you fast forward to Greensboro 2023, we had the GOP North Carolina State Convention where Michael Whatley was running for chair against John Kane. And we have this fiasco of people saying they want paper ballots. They want paper ballots, paper ballots. And Whatley says, no, I have this great iPhone app. I have this great phone app. And people said, no, we want phones. And he says, we're going to go with this. It's going to be fast and easy. And we're going to do it this way. And people were not able to vote on their phones. We have proof that people were voting outside of the convention floor. People were voting from Wilmington and several cities away. What's your take on that?
Well, just to add the background a bit. First of all, I wasn't there, but I'm fully familiar with what happened based on numerous accounts. Whatley wasn't just running for chair, he was running for re-election as chair. So he had control over the voting apparatus. He had control over the decision to go with a cell phone mechanism instead of paper ballots. Now, let's think about this. This is 3 years after the 2020 election seal. 3 years after we saw all types of problems with computer ballots. You know, if you remember in 2020 in Antrim County, Michigan, there was a red county, Antrim County, that flashed blue. That was in Dominion County. We know about all the problems with these electronic voting machines, and Republicans are demanding electoral and election integrity, which can only be guaranteed, nothing's absolutely guaranteed, but can most easily and best be guaranteed by paper ballots only. So Whatley, as the incumbent chair, being challenged by John Rich, is in control of the process. And rather than come up with a simple system of paper ballots, like we use this year at the convention, he comes up with this cell phone app, which, first of all, the cell phone app itself is questionable because you can't audit the results. Nobody can look over the side of somebody's cell phone and determine whether or not the votes are being properly calculated. And then we have all types of reports, if you pointed out, from folks out of state voting. And yet Michael tries to say he's an election integrity guy, but you can't have it both ways. You can't say you're an election integrity guy and you're going to send a lawyer here, a lawyer there, but get your own self elected with a cell phone app. It just, like you're too young to remember this, but some folks watching this, there was a TV show a long time ago called Lost in Space. And there was a robot that would go, it does not compute. Well, it does not compute. It does not compute that you would do that. So it was a real slap in the face of those great election integrity advocates within the Republican Party, like my friend Lieutenant Colonel Jay Delancey and the Voter Integrity Project, and many others who have worked so hard to clean up the voter rolls in the state of North Carolina. But the Republican Party should be leading the way on the issue of voter integrity, and we should be practicing what we're preaching. This is one of the reasons Michael, in my judgment, is not going to be able to win. If you gave him the nomination today, which he's not going to get the nomination, and one of the reasons we're going to take him out is because of what he did in 2023. The party is divided, and people are still angry about that, among other things. But if you gave him the nomination today, he will lose in part because he doesn't have his party behind him. Now, I wish we could rally around a candidate, but the fact of the matter is, that is a major vote of self-inflicted no confidence by using something so unreliable and so fishy to have your own self reelected as chair. So it's still bewildering to me, and I hope we've learned our lessons and never go back to either computer voting or cell phone voting again in the state Republican Party.
So I've heard a couple of criticisms saying that, people don't feel like you've explained enough how you're going to help North Carolinians with energy cost of living, things like that. Because we have a cost of living crisis, we have an energy crisis. How are you going to help us with that?
Well, first off, there are some people, if you count from 1 to 10 perfectly, they'll criticize you because you didn't say 11, 12, and 13 because you ran out of time. We have come out with a number of North Carolina specific proposals. First off, let's talk about our battle for the shrimpers. The Democrats and even Republicans down in our own General Assembly have tried to shut down shrimpers in eastern North Carolina and other commercial fishermen who not only depend on shrimping as a way of life, but understand that food production is a matter of national security. Just about a month ago, it was revealed that we had a ton of radioactive shrimp imported from Indonesia. So with regard to that, I've already proposed, and whoever says I'm not doing enough, they follow me on the road, they know a little better. But it's easy to say, oh, I'm not doing enough. I proposed a National Shrimpers Protection Act so that Phil Berger and other senators can't go in and simply take somebody's way of producing a living away. Also, I'm proposing a ban on the importation of foreign shrimp and other foreign fish, and we've got to start closing down. And here's one thing we're going to do to help our farmers. We've got to stop the importation of food products from China and other nations, and I'm going to fight for that. We've got to protect our family farmers. Whoever says I'm not doing enough, they're not with me. Now, maybe I'm not doing enough, but we're doing the best we can to articulate policies that are going to help our people. My granddaddy was a tobacco farmer, so I guarantee you I'm probably the only candidate for United States Senate that's worked inside of the tobacco barn or slopped hogs. You know what that means, slopped hogs? It's been in a hog pen and actually worked the land. So small farmers are important to me. So one of the things we're going to do to help our small farmers is we are going to fight to block for the importation of foreign foods so that our farmers have an opportunity to succeed. The other thing in terms of protecting the family farm, I'm of the belief that big is bad. And I'm going to talk about farmers and I'm going to pivot to healthcare. Our small farmers, our family farmers, which have been the heart of feeding this nation, here in North Carolina especially, which is a large agrarian state, it has been, are under fire. They're under fire from multiple sources, but large agricultural conglomerates are coming in and buying our farmland up. I've already taken the position that I want to ban Chinese ownership, and not just China, but other foreign ownership of American farmland. We've got Chinese ownership around our military bases. I'm going to fight to end that, so that it's a national security problem when you've got foreign controlled entities around the largest army base in the United States. So we got to take that land back. If you're a nation that is part of the BRICS nation that is trying to take out the US dollar, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, if you are part of that conglomerate and you know there's a Brazilian or a South African or an Indian conglomerate owning American land, got to take that back because they're trying to attack our U.S. dollar. And that land needs to go back to North Carolina farmers. The other thing is, I think when you've got these giant agricultural conglomerates like Monsanto, they're just too big. They're driving the family farmer out of business. So I'm going to fight like you know what for the family farmer because my granddad is a farmer. I've been on a farm. I've worked on a farm. Let's move to Western North Carolina, for example. Here we are over a year after Helene. September 27th, I believe, was the day the storm struck. Joe Biden did not get any U.S. military assistance in until October 3rd. I'm a military guy, as you know. I have a relationship with our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. I understand how the military operates. It was an absolute desecration that we had the ability to get Black Hawk and Chinook helicopters in on day one, and he sat on his can. U.S. military is organized into operational theaters. Some are geographic, like CENTCOM and AFRICOM, African Command, Central Command, North Atlantic Command, and some are functional by their mission in nature. For example, Special Operations Command, the SEALs and the Rangers are in that. Transportation Command, they fly our military around the world. I want a United States Disaster Relief Command that's part of the U.S. military. What would that do for North Carolina? We are prone to hurricane strikes here. Here's what that would do. A United States Disaster Relief Command would put a 4-star general or admiral over a military force whose task is to respond immediately in the event of a natural disaster. Listen, we have B-52 bombers sitting over at Barksdale Air Base in Arizona with nuclear bombs. You know, we have nuclear-tipped Minutemen missiles in Minot, North Dakota, and South Dakota ready to go. We ought to have a military installation with generators, waters, first aid equipment, evacuation equipment, you name it, ready to go on a moment's notice. So the next storm that strikes, that general is ordering The military in on day one, dropping in generators, dropping. We lose lives and lose property by delay. You can't afford the delay. The military has the ability to do it, so I'm going to do that for North Carolina. Also, I'll level with you. There are still $64 billion worth of damage that still has not gotten to Western North Carolina. I know that Whatley is the czar, the hurricane czar, and I say czar, with quotation marks. But why hasn't the money been delivered? Why we still have folks that are living in tents, and why our roads still need to be built? What I want to do is this. I want to set that $64 billion into a trust fund immediately available, number one. Number two, you got to get the bureaucratic obstacles out. I want FEMA gone. FEMA proved itself to be an inexcusable disaster. It's gone. Now, what do we see that worked during Helene? And what could have worked better if we'd have been better funded? We saw Christian charities and we saw local folks. So what I would do, I would set this money aside in a trust fund, and then I would designate 3 entities. And I would designate 3 so as not to put all the money in one. You don't give them all the money at once. I would ask Franklin Graham to step forward because Samaritan's purse is on the ground. I would ask another charity. It might be Adam Smith's group. It might be the Cajun Navy. It might be someone. So you would have 2 charities, Christian charities, and you would have local governments, and you'd have a board from those groups deciding what needs to be attacked now. And they'd be able to get in that money and get it to the ground. So whoever says that I am not proposing enough from North Carolina, whoever's saying that, I would say it's a matter of not really knowing what they're talking about, because North Carolina is the number 1 priority. I'm a Tar Heel born, you better believe it. So I hope that helps a little bit.
It does. Thank you so much. Can you tell us about where we can find out more about your campaign?
Sure. You go to our website is Brown. That's my name, Brown. I should have worn a brown tie so it'll be easier to remember. Brown for FORNC, the North Carolina that I'm about first. Brown4NC.com. Brown4NC.com.
Love it.
That's it.
We can't wait to vote for you in March, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Abby. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
God bless.